Hey guys, this is Austin, and today I'm here with a review of the PlayStation Vita. Now, as the successor to the PSP from 2005, this has a lot to live up to, especially considering how well the 3DS is doing. But does it have what it takes? At first glance, the answer looks to be a giant yes. Just like the last generation, the Vita absolutely destroys the 3DS as far as graphical capability goes. It's powered by a quad-core ARM Cortex-A9 CPU along with 512 megabytes of RAM. It also has a quad-core GPU with 128 megabytes of dedicated memory. Tech jargon aside, that gives the Vita more memory overall than the PlayStation 3. Graphics aren't quite up to the level of the PS3, but they're not all that far off. The tech doesn't stop there either. The Vita also sports a 5-inch OLED QHD touchscreen. To put it in perspective, the PSP has a 4.3-inch screen, and the 3DS has an even smaller 3.5-inch display. Or to make it a bit more clear, the screen on the Vita is roughly the same size as the entire iPhone 4S. As it's an OLED panel, that means it's also very clear and vibrant, with fantastic saturation and excellent viewing angles. While it could be slightly high resolution, overall this is the best display I've ever seen on a mobile device. Another thing Sony tried really hard with are the different control methods. You'll find the same overall layout from the PSP, with shoulder buttons, your normal PlayStation buttons, and a D-pad, but there are also now 2 analog sticks. Not only do having 2 make playing many more games a lot better, but they are also raised, making them a lot more ergonomic than the slide pad on the PSP. The Vita also has a touchscreen, which is the only way to get around the UI, and is used in some games along with a rear touchpad. This is a fairly unique addition that can give you some interesting new ways to play games. For example, in Uncharted Golden Abyss, you can use it to zoom in the scope of your rifle, which works really quite well. You can also use it to push the ground up in little deviants, just as you would push up a piece of fabric from behind. As if that were not enough, the Vita also comes with a full complement of motion controls, including 6-axis and a compass. Just like on the iPhone or Android, this can come in handy for many different types of games, and along with the rest of the controls really do a very good job of immersing you in the game. Going back to Uncharted is a great example. You can use the analog sticks and shoulder buttons ordinarily, but when you're needing to zero in on someone, you just flick the rear touch panel to zoom in and tilt your Vita slightly to line the shot up perfectly. Between the great controls, large display, and with a decent pair of headphones, the Vita does a great job of sucking you into a game. Of course, it's not all good news. To start with, the Vita is massive. While around the house it's fine, it's borderline pocketable. It is fairly thin and light for its size, but there's no getting around the fact that it's a huge slab of glass and metal. The UI is also, well, not great to be honest. On firmware 1.6, unlocking the Vita generally takes several seconds, which while not a big deal, is long enough for you to sit around wondering why it's taking so long. The overall interface is also a bit too cartoony for my taste, but I will say that it runs very smoothly, and there's hardly any lag to be found, most likely due to Sony keeping one of the CPU cores in reserve. Speaking of the responsiveness, it's clear that the Vita has tons of power. There's almost no lag to be found anywhere in the OS or in games. It'll be interesting to see how much farther developers can push the console. The Vita has a pair of cameras, and I'm currently using the front-facing one to record right now. And now, as you can see, neither are particularly good. Both the front and rear-facing cameras max out at a resolution of 640 by 480. Now, as far as stills go, as long as you have decent light, you can take an okay snapshot, but beyond that, it's really not going to be worth much. But the video is actually kind of decent. So it does record in 480p at 30 frames per second, so everything's nice and smooth. And as you can see, in good light, it's not too bad. However, both the stills and video degrade really rapidly when you get out of nice light, so they get very desaturated, very grainy. And of course, as you can hear, the microphone is not very good at all. The Vita has 2 different ways of playing games. You can purchase physical games, which come on carts that are roughly the size of an SD card, or you can download them from the PlayStation Store. The Vita has no accessible onboard memory, so buying a memory card is basically required. They are close to the size of a micro SD card, and entirely proprietary, so you'll have to buy one from Sony. They come in 4, 8, 16, and 32GB sizes at the moment, and range anywhere from $20 for 4GB up to a wallet-searing $100 for a 32GB card. The Vita has compatibility with PSP games, PSP minis, and apps. As of recording this review, apps aren't live yet, but will include Twitter, Facebook, Skype, Netflix, and many more when the Vita officially launches. PS1 games should be available soon as well. You can play PSP games by downloading them from the store, and they run very well, with the option to use the second analog stick on the Vita, as well as using a filter to make the graphics look a bit less pixelated. With all of this power, you've got to pay for it somewhere, and in the Vita's case it's in battery life. Sony claims 3 to 5 hours of life, and I found that to be pretty accurate, as with mixed use and some standby time, I got around 3.5 to 4 hours out of a charge. Certainly not bad considering the specs of the Vita and how thin it is, but it would be nice to have a bit more longevity. There are also some oddities. For example, the browser is reasonably fast. However, it doesn't seem to cache pages and has to re-render the content anytime you scroll, giving you a checkerboard pattern pretty much all the time. The left shoulder button also squeaks when pressed hard on my console, which is a bit odd considering just how well the rest of the Vita is built. I'm willing to bet that I'm just unlucky, but it is something to consider. Overall, my nerd side, which is about 90% of me, absolutely loves the Vita. The power is there and the controls are absolutely fantastic, not just for a handheld console, but for any console, period. Like most new consoles, it's probably not a bad idea to wait a little while to see what games come out as well as let Sony work out the kinks. However, if you're looking for an absolutely awesome little console right now, I highly recommend the PS Vita. If you enjoyed and want to be awesome, definitely be sure to leave this video a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe.